Hi, yes, I'm back. For those who don't know, the house I was renting caught fire, and it spread to the section of the house I was living in. Luckily, everyone is okay, even the pets, but not so luckily, I've lost quite a lot, actually. 20-second update for those of you who care. For one, I'm currently in a new home. Thank you, my uncle who is a landlord. Sleeping on a cot since my bed was working on securing a fully functioning PC, as my current one is holding itself together for the time being. And lastly, this is a 20-part series I am doing to celebrate the Warhammer community. I am going to be hitting the 20 of the best, most well-known chapters of Space Marines in no particular order whatsoever, just shit that I know you guys are going to like. It's going to go with the theme of All-Stars, and I hope you all enjoy. So, what is part one? What's going to start off our merry list of the coolest big armor men to have ever lived? The goddamn Minotaurs. Hold your applause, because these dudes are unironically one of my favorite chapters of Space Marines. If not my favorite outside of the Night Lords, because they just ooze the stinkiest aura in the setting, which has nothing to do with hygiene or Nurgle. They are unironically the type of guy to slaughter hundreds of civilians for fun, just to barely accomplish their goals slightly faster. And then when an Inquisitor with the authority to sanction them shows up to simply ask, "My God, what have you done?" they are the type to say without even thinking, "Your mum." They are the kings of disrespect. And after doing all my reading on them, I have realized they are the most hated loyalist chapter in the history of the setting. That's why I love them. They are rated less huggable than the goddamn Marines Malevolent, which is so funny. They are basically the same chapter in mentality, but the problem with the Minotaurs that sets them over the edge to be even worse is that they are significantly more supplied than the Marines Malevolent. But I'm skipping ahead. We're gonna do a bit of a dive, a deep cut into the dark and evil minds of these evil bastards and discuss their origins, their purpose, characters, and some interesting facts. So before we get into this, I just want to sell some gamer subs. It's been too long. Aha! Well, that sucked. Anywho, you guys like JoJo? You guys like energy drinks? And do you guys like affordable drink mixtures and supporting your recently rehomed favorite content creator? Which all of these may be a bit specific, but on the lowest of keys, you should probably understand at this point, I am exceptionally specific with everything. Gamer Sups has a JoJo flavor. Don't know if you knew this, I probably brought it up at least 20 times at this point, but yeah, Gamer Sups is a brand I have supported for a long ass time now, and I will probably support until I sunset my 40k career into the dust. One of the flavors that has grown on me over the last couple months has been Ocean Stone Fruit, and considering it was one of the few that do partially survive the fire, I really have grown to rely on it for my energy needs. It was created as a collaboration with JoJo's Part 6 anime, and it is delightful. It's a refreshing plum flavor, and with 2 or 3 scoops of that in a standard bottle of water, I'm energized and ready to go beat up Dio or Poochie. Not the Avolo, he's scary. Or Funny Valentine for that matter, but I guess that doesn't, never mind. If you want to pick up some Stone Ocean fruit, then consider using a code BONEZONE at checkout in order to get 10% off your purchase. It also would support the channel. Thanks to GamerSubs for supporting this channel, to JoJo's for existing, and let's get back to the Minotaurs being just the absolute worst. Alright, juice debt paid. Let's talk about the oftentimes confusing lore of the Minotaurs. I say confusing in a bit of a different way than what most people mean when they're talking about confusing 40k lore, where in 9 cases out of 10, they usually say it in reference to the fact that the lore is all over the place and inconsistent. And the Minotaurs are a little bit like that, but the main thing to know is that they're kind of nowhere. They are almost ubiquitous with certain aspects of the setting, including, but not limited to, the High Lords of Terra. Don't worry, we're gonna cover that. But if we were to take the official records at face value, the Minotaurs are a chapter of Marines that came about as a result of the 21st founding. Now, you've probably heard about this founding because, like me and every other YouTuber who covers lore, we have this little glass box of ideas when we either need money money or run out of other shit to talk about, labeled "In case of bankruptcy, break this glass," and inside is just every chapter that the Cursed Founding produced. Basically, it was some cocksure Magos' idea to run around and edit the shit out of some untouched gene seed that was discovered, removing what they saw as errors in it, making the Imperial Fist successors that come out of this new founding unyielding in combat, but willing to concede points intellectually, have the Blood Angels that wouldn't fall to the Black Rage, maybe have salamanders with stronger bones. You can probably see where this is going, as I assume you've seen at least one sci-fi movie in the last decade where someone has messed with something they probably shouldn't have, and that it usually leads to serious repercussions. Your Carnosaurs, your Jurassic Parks, and for you scholars out there with huge dicks, your Velocipastors. Before you ask, yes, I'm on a bit of a dinosaur kick. I was holed up in a hotel for well over probably 2 weeks now that I think about it, and all I had to do was read 40k books about different Space Marine chapters and watch dinosaur movies. Also subscribe to Dino Diego, he's a good YouTuber. Anyway, they with the way things were, and thus everything went to shit, with every single chapter that came out of the Cursed Founding being kind of fucked up in a weird way. Some being physically deformed, like the Blood Gorgons, and some being physically deformed and loyal, like the Black Dragons. Or some misaligning the cosmic balance of the universe to have them be incredibly hated, like the Lamenters. But for some reason, the Minotaurs, who are slated as to have came from the 21st Founding, are seemingly untouched. You could say that they're kind of berserk, but not really in comparison to the actual berserk chapters like the Knights of Blood or the Flesh Terrors. But I'm gonna burst your bubble here. Now, this is all gonna be supposition. I'm putting a bunch of pieces together, and this is just my theory, but the Minotaurs that came from the 21st Founding are probably long extinct, at least in spirit, as you can look back to see the old Minotaurs scheme and see it's fucking terrible. But why am I saying this? Because in several instances in the lore, it is actually implied, at least loosely, that the Minotaurs of that chapter were replaced with a new chapter. The new chapter of Minotaurs were put into power by the High Lords, whom are the only people who have the ability to do that kind of fuckery and get away with it, or at least bury it. So, why the Minotaurs? Why would you need a chapter of Marines at your beck and call, and to what end? So, for one, the reasoning behind them being chosen to be the Minotaurs is because, well, there are already 2 other chapters out there that have a similar color and naming scheme, that being the Brazen Minotaurs and the White Minotaurs, some of them looking so similar to the scheme that the Minotaurs have that it could easily confuse people who aren't incredibly educated as to what they actually are. And it basically would mean that a brass-colored armor space marine with weird shoulder pads shows up, and it could be an unrelated chapter of Minotaur-themed space marines, or it could be the same one that you're thinking of. But because of that, it would lead to speculation or the crimes of the Minotaurs under the control of the High Lords being underreported or overreported about their heroic deeds if it's something like the White Minotaurs. It's stated in the Watchers of the Throne series that the Minotaurs have such a shrouded and mysterious origin, but they only appear when the High Lords command it. Alongside that, they usually lie all the way through about why they are there. In the second book in the series, Regent Shadow, they appear to do some pretty horrible shit on Terra under the guise of, our fortress monastery was attacked and we came to replenish our gene stock, which is bullshit because, one, they appeared in the Daedalus Krato, and if you didn't know, they're a fleet-based chapter, which means that's their battle barge, that is their fortress monastery, so it looked pretty undamaged at the moment, and they were just lying. They were lying to show up and intervene in a conflict that the High Lords were telling them to do. But why would they intervene? Easy. When you have 1,000 of the most trained and horrendously evil Marines legally sanctioned to appear in full chapter strength in a single area, you give them whatever weapons they want and say they can do whatever it takes to make the problem go away, problem tends to get dealt with pretty goddamn quickly. And yes, I said the whole chapter, as in 1,000 Marines appear all at once in relic gear. They even have a Contemptor Dreadnought stalking around the insides of their battle barge just to defend it, because he's on a forever timeout due to all the goddamn war crimes he's committed when he was involved in the Bad App War. And don't worry, we're we're going to cover Hecaton Aiakos at some point in this video. Just let me cook here. These guys are ruthless, and we don't know to what end the Minotaurs are used to attack political enemies in comparison to, say, the regular enemies of the Imperium of Mankind. For context, in prior editions of 40k, they had a specialty that was killing non-chaos space marines. Their in-lore justification was to deal with renegades that have nothing to do with chaos magic, as especially after the Bad Ab War, there was kind of a need for it. You know, non-chaos aligned renegade chapters branching off of the Imperium to secede and do their own thing. Yeah, we needed to kill those because they could get pretty uppity at certain times. They aren't actually doing that. They're doing that just because they really, really like killing space marines, especially entire chapters, proving they are the baddest bullies in the universe. And then stealing your shit because, by God, you thought the Blood Ravens were bad at stealing shit? Brother, you have not heard of larceny this intense until now. Let's get a bit specific here and discuss, well, what they can specifically do, what makes them so good at their job, and what are their talents. The Minotaurs fight in a way that feels unfair. Like, usually an understrength company of space marines are able to take down damn near any minor task to moderate task in the entirety of the Imperium. Maybe two companies equaling around about 150 marines, but for one, the Minotaurs are almost always never under strength in any regard, which is bullshit. They are almost always around 1,000 marines, if not a few shy. There is a reason for it, and it's likely due to the data slug indoctrination technique they use, where they basically take new recruits and insta-load a bunch of shit into their brain, which causes them to be a little bit unstable, but I think that's more of a requirement than it is a bug. It's kind of common, so I can't really blame them for it. I know the Marines Errant do something similar, I believe. It was either them or the Nova Marines, because I get them mixed up all the time. So you're always going to be dealing with a whole lot of these guys when they're on the field, because they're always at full strength, but just how many companies do they usually field? All of them. Yes, they fight as a whole chapter of 1,000 Marines at all times, which is miserable if you're trying to get them to back down from committing so many war crimes. Because, well, they usually have two options whenever this happens. They either A, listen to you begging them to stop and try to find another way of accomplishing their task, or B, they kill you and maybe 50 to 100 of your guys brought to protect you and keep on keeping on until they get the job done the way that they prefer. About 9 times out of 10, they do the latter of those two, only ever yielding in the face of overwhelming odds, which is very hard for them to discover. I refer you to my prior comment of them being a full chapter at all times. For example, they once reluctantly, very reluctantly, backed down when a Custodes group intervened to stop them from slaughtering Imperial fists and other important Imperial assets. And I do have to stress a second time, reluctantly. It's pretty crazy how willing they are to commit to the bit, but why is it? Well, for one, their main tactic, if you could tell, is overwhelming force. They are a non-stop hammer blow that will do whatever it takes to destroy you in as little time as possible. They are going to rip you apart like a pack of wild gorillas carrying great hammers, and very rarely can you do anything to stop it. It's an ocean of nails and bullets that's going to be flying at you at the highest speed possible. They are very much a force meets force type of chapter, so if you can overwhelm them, they usually do back off, but they will likely never forget this. As I should also note, they are vengeful assholes. They are incredibly aggressive, taking literally everything personally, but on the flip side, they are also very prone to throwing goading insults at you in an attempt to provoke you so much that you make a move that would give them the slightest permission to straight up fucking murk you, and just blasting you and your entire gene line into smithereens. It's just how they are. They take every excuse to kill something, and if they feel legally obligated to do so, they're gonna do it with very little impunity. We're gonna touch upon this later, but there is a character in their history who remarked once that a 60% civilian casualty rate is below par for him. The entire chapter is kind of like that. They are basically the spoiled rich kids who are also unfortunately really good at their job, so you can't really bank on them being just not good at things, because they also just don't have the restraint of basic human decency and, God forbid, ethics. They will be deployed en masse to kill as many people as they need to. They are Occam's razor personified as a chapter. Like, for example, if they are requested to go deal with, say, a politician who's spreading heretical or just anti-Lords of Terra information to the masses, a normal chapter will try to kill him if they are employed and minimize minimize civilian involvement to prevent political upheaval, but the Minotaurs, nah, if they know what town or city he's in, if they don't go straight up bombing it, they are going to come in and kill everything in their way until they get to him, stomp his skull in, and then kill everything on their way back to their main ship. And if a Space Marine chapter questions their ability to perform their duties in a civil manner, it's not unusual for an entire company of Marines who go up against the Minotaurs in such a way to go, missing, if you can read between the lines here. They are always looking for a reason to go to war, and it's mostly because they just enjoy the act of killing, of proving they are always better than others. The dial is literally set between Khorne and Slaanesh with an almost perfect balance. They love to prove they are stronger, but by God do they love murdering people just for the fun of it. In short, they are the perfect people to do the dirty work of the High Lords. It's one of the reasons they tend to pop up at the worst of times. They are just the worst and are sent to do the worst work. They were sent to prove the old way of dealing with problems was better than the new way, with Guilliman reappearing, shaking up the status quo. This caused them to go into direct conflict with the Imperial Fists, literally the most loyal chapter in the setting. The Custodes and the Sisters of Silence were also involved in this, which I don't even have to tell you how loyal they are to the throne. They are basically just the three most you should probably not mess with them if you want to live a long life groups in the 40k, because you're gonna piss off pretty much every single Imperial politician along the way down. Also, that was kind of a wordy title. I feel like I should probably workshop that to be something a little bit more catchy, but the short list is just that. A short list of fellas you will probably get shit for messing with, so I don't really think I need to mess with. I'm losing my train of thought here. Man, I think I inhaled too much smoke fumes. So let's talk characters now. There are some fun ones to get into. Some of them are so fun, in fact, that they are the reasons why a lot of people get into Minotaurs and actually talk about them to this day. And before you ask, no, we're not going to be covering the Bad Ab War here. That is just its own incredibly diverse topic to cover in the future. But I will just say this before jumping into character stuff. If you think you're ever having a bad day, at least you're not the lamenters during the Bad Ab War who got paired off to fight against the fucking Minotaurs. It didn't end well for them, I should say. But yeah, let's dive into characters with one you probably know not too much about, and that is Hamath Kratos. See, he was released as a model for a Forge World Day exclusive a long ass time ago with a bit of lore to him, and he was basically unplayable unless you just wanted a really, really, really fancy looking Devastator. I really like this model, by the way, but it really doesn't go in to tell you how actually insane this man is. He's incredibly customized. His war gear is almost 100% unique to him, and even his rank, Vigilator Sergeant, is literally just mentioned with him being the only example. The big lore event with him is, one, he rose through the ranks pretty damn quick, and the other is that he killed an uncomfortable amount of Drukhari and Eldar this one time. I mean, this man, with some pretty evil planning, was able to kill hundreds alone by using civilians to lure out the Dark Eldar, shoot the shit out of the Space Elves, then bring whatever civilians were back alive to try again with another group of Dark Eldar. It is stated in his lore blurb that the casualty rate for civilians was an unexpectedly low 6 in 10. Yeah, fuck it. 60% human casualty rate? Yeah, weirdly low, all things considered, but if you think that's not enough of an example, he has a modified heavy bolter that fires especially constructed heavy bolt shells that don't explode on contact. They're actually made to fire more like traditional bullets with an explosive magnet charge launching them forward rather than the weird gyrojet propelled rockets. The explosive charge is replaced by a solid metal slug. Why? Because it's easier to shoot through soft targets and hit things behind them if they don't explode on contact. Yes, he literally made bullets specifically designed to shoot through civilian meat shields so he could get his job of killing Space Marines and heavily armored targets done slightly more efficiently, and these are called assassin bolts, by the way. I love the Minotaurs. Trust me, it only gets weirder from here, and don't worry, we are going to talk about the Chapter Master, but I'm saving him for the end because he is one of the most interesting characters in the setting and one of my favorites. Let's move on to the next character I want to talk about. We're going to talk about the Minotaur of the Labyrinth, that is the Daedalus Krata, their weird fortress monastery megaship, and that is Hecaton Aiakos. I call him Hector for short because it's easier. This dude is a menace. Well, at least he was. Remember how I mentioned that the Minotaurs had a contemptor in their midst? Yeah, that's Hector. He's, kind of different from your average dreadnought. See, where most dreadnoughts are revered engines of war, ancients who hold the steadfast beliefs of the chapter in such high regard that it's almost impossible to look on them with anything other than a mix of fear and reverence. Yeah, Hecaton Aiakos is looked at with fear, shame, and disconcertion. This dude has an illegally modified Contemptor dreadnought chassis where everything is rewired to fire stronger, hotter, and most likely more unstable. He has a lot more speed due to him being in a fucking Contemptor pattern dreadnought with a modified plasma cannon and dreadnought power weapon that would make even most custodians think twice about fighting this guy. He's terrifying, but what else is there to know about him? He's a dreadnought that's on forever timeout, because during the Badab War, amidst all the carnage, Hector was racking up one hell of a body count, which is pretty normal for dreadnoughts and minotaurs alike, but Hector was different. See, he was ripping things apart so efficiently that he was smeared in enough gore that you couldn't see the brass underneath his armor. So the loyal Imperial Guardsmen that were serving alongside them in the Badab War ended up firing on him in the confusion, because a blood-drenched Contemptor dreadnought ripping apart anything it sees is pretty frightening, I will state, but to put it mildly, he took exception to this. So he immediately went on a berserking rampage where he ended up tearing apart a bunch of Leman Russ tanks on his own side, killing a bunch of friendly individuals, and was only talked down from his bull-headed charge by the Chapter Master of the Minotaurs himself. This ended with him being stationed forever in the Daedalus Krata, which is the fortress monastery battle barge the Minotaurs use. And it is described as also one of the ugliest and scariest spaceships in the Imperium's collection. The ship itself has an interior that is designed to be looked at as if it were a maze. Only the members of the Minotaurs and their serfs can read its layout easily, so Hecaton Aiakos is set to patrol this maze. Get it? The Minotaur of the maze. It's kind of cute like that. Next we have Ivanus and Komi, the Reclusiarch, and this guy is probably one of my favorite models in 40k. At least he has my favorite helmet for a Space Marine in 40k. The skull with a Spartan helmet aesthetic is fucking phenomenal, which makes it so fun when you pair it with the black armor with the brass detailing and trim. He's probably one of the most intimidating individuals in the chapter, as unlike the rest of his brothers, who usually have rocks for brains and don't really need to think more than just I shoot the thing in front of me, Ivanus is described as having an almost disconcerting level of intellect, able to formulate ideas and strategies on the fly that would make almost any Imperial general proud. Alongside that, he is apparently incredibly talented at speaking, able to rouse the most violent battle fervor in his coldest troops with an almost superlative skill. He is also decked to the balls with the wackiest custom war gear I've ever seen on a man. Artificer armor goes without saying. That helmet, he kind of had to make that himself, but most chaplains tend to have a Crozius Arcanum, don't you know, and a Reclusiarch tends to have an Artificer one. It's usually a power weapon that is a representation of their office, and more often than not, it's usually just a power maul. But, yeah, Ivanus here doesn't have that. He has both a power fist, already scary, and something called a Crozius Arcanos. Okay, so what's the difference? Well, the Minotaur's branding, for one, and the fact that it's a Thunderhammer with a built-in grenade launcher attachment, just for funsies. What the actual hell would you need that level of firepower for? Are you trying to hunt down greater demons on the daily? Did you piss off Scarbrand and just needed that extra level of assurance? It just seems like a little overkill, but before I get too sidetracked, I do want to mention a little bit about the Minotaur's branding before we cover capital H, him of the chapter, if you catch what I mean. And that is, did you know the Minotaurs have their own unique pattern of Terminator armor? It's like mentioned maybe twice. It's weird, right? But they have this thing called the Arcanac Terminator armor, and outside of the name, we don't know what it is. Like, I tend to think it's just heavily modified Tartaros Terminator plate because, as you'll see, Asterion Moloc is probably one of the most dangerous Space Marines in the setting, and his armor is pretty unique. The chapter master of the Minotaurs is a man named Asterion Moloc, a man whose legend stretches across the universe, a man that even custodians are a bit weary of. This dude has been described in books as radiating an aura of pure bloodshed and hate, so thick it almost comes off him like a heat shimmer. He is an asshole. He is boastful, he is proud, and unless it involves combat, he doesn't really give a shit to involve himself. Equipped with the best war gear that the Imperium can literally offer a Space Marine outside of something like maybe the Grey Knights or even the Salamanders, but they make their own shit, so I guess it doesn't count. He's equipped with nothing but the most high-end relic gear. A heavily modified version of Tartaros Terminator armor, which, yes, this is a pattern that got incredibly rare after the Horus Heresy. He hefts a modified storm shield that is an heirloom in most regards. It's also incredibly powerful. He has a couple of iron halos on his back, which, you know, just doubles down on the Terminator shield and force field protectiveness. And he is known for a special combat spear because, you know, Spartan Terminator with a spear and shield, it kind of goes hand in hand. This spear is known as the Black Spear, which can basically be described as a Custodian Guardian spear with a built-in las cannon, which upsets me to no end, and it also ties into a theory that a lot of people have. See, Asterion Moloc is, well, you know. This dude is one of the most talked about characters in the setting. He is the ultimate power scaler's wet dream. He is one of the greatest killers the Imperium has to offer for a fucking reason. There are numerous reports in his long career of him taking mortal damage or being lost in some massive explosion, only for him to reappear later. This has only bolstered his reputation to be something more than just a normal Space Marine. People think he might be like a Proto-Primaris Marine, or maybe he just got modifications unique to him that the High Lords cooked up. Some people think he is a Custodes that was mind-wiped and brainwashed to be the chapter master of the Minotaurs. Some people think Asterion Moloc is just the name given to the chapter master at any given time, and every time a new guy needs to be created, they just take a data slug containing the memories of the last guy, ram it into the skull of the new guy, and boom, you have yourself a new dude. What we know is, in terms of raw combat physical prowess, if we are to take Asterion Moloc and put him in a battle royale with every single Space Marine in the history of the setting, he'd probably make it to at least the top 5 strongest of all Space Marines in the setting. If you took it and included the entirety of the Imperium's arsenal, including tank commanders and Baneblades and shit, he'd at least be top 10. The whole setting? Maybe top 20. His model is dope, his lore is dope, and he is the only Space Marine I know of to truly make a Custodian hesitate, which is insane to think about. That's the Minotaurs as a whole. They are objectively the bad guys for a reason. They are the bad guys of the good guys. You might be able to pull that, oh, there are no good guys and 40k bullshit, but if you were to reduce it down, the Minotaurs do horrible things. They enjoy doing horrible things. They objectively don't like doing nice things because they see it as weakness. They are going to do good things on the occasion for the wrong reasons for bad people. It's just how the Imperium works, and they will likely always do it for their own unique personal reasons, usually larceny and murder. Once I'm done rebuilding, I'm gonna give 40k the game, like 10th edition, another try, and if I like it, I may start painting up some of those wild-ass Marines I have floating around as Minotaurs, and go from there. But that's because I tend to enjoy the villains of a setting a little bit more than I do the heroes. But what's your opinion on the Minotaurs? Are they good? Are they bad? Somewhere in between? Let me know in the comments down below. I'll be watching because they are probably one of my favorite chapters, at least top 3. Special thanks to my channel members, because with your help, I was able to weather the storm that I just had to get through and realize that I might not have to worry about my life and my financial status afterwards. I don't know if I'll harp on the fire much going forward after this video, but I am just grateful for all your support. So from the bottom of my heart, I thank you all. And thank you all for watching, and I hope you all have a wonderful night.